You need to stop coming to me with your little emergencies. I'm not your ATM, and frankly, I'm tired of bailing you out. Each word landed like a little slap. My son, Michael, said this to me in a voice so flat and dismissive it made my chest hurt. He was standing in front of me in his kitchen, the kitchen in the house I had paid for, after I'd just asked him for help with a $4,200 property tax bill, a bill I didn't actually owe. I stayed quiet, didn't cry, didn't beg, just stood there listening to my only child tell me I was a burden while $28 million sat in a bank account he knew nothing about. You know what, Mom? It's time you figured out how to be an adult for once in your life. Some of us have real problems. He stormed out of the kitchen. His wife, Jennifer, walked past me to grab her coffee off the counter, her acrylic nails clicking against the cup. She didn't even look at me, just said, "Dot, when you're done feeling sorry for yourself, the toilets need cleaning." I have book club tonight. I nodded, picked up the cleaning supplies from under the sink, and I smiled. Because 3 hours later, a black Mercedes pulled up outside, and when Michael opened that front door and saw who had come to pick me up, I watched every drop of color drain from his smug face like someone had pulled a plug. But let me back up, because you need to understand how a 62-year-old widow ends up testing her own family like they're strangers at a card table. You need to know about the Friday nights, about Harold, about how a woman can disappear inside her own life without anyone noticing she's gone. My name is Dorothy Richardson, and 6 months ago, I won the lottery. Not a scratch-off ticket. Not some $10,000 prize. The actual Powerball jackpot. $52 million. After taxes, $28 million hit my account like a freight train I didn't hear coming. I was sitting at my kitchen table. Well, actually, the table in the back corner of Michael and Jennifer's house where I'd been living for 3 years, like a live-in maid. It was a Friday night, 8 o'clock. I just finished cleaning up dinner for 6 people, none of whom had thanked me, and I was eating leftover meatloaf straight from the Tupperware because Jennifer said the dining room was family only when they had guests. I pulled out my phone to check my lottery numbers, not because I thought I'd win. I checked every Friday out of habit, the same way you might visit a grave, paying respects to something dead that you can't quite let go of. Harold and I had played the same numbers for 38 years, every Friday night without fail. 7, 14, 23, 38, 42, 51. Our anniversary, his birthday, my birthday, the day we brought Michael home from the hospital, the address of our first apartment, the number of years Harold's mama lived. Harold died 3 years ago, dropped dead in our driveway holding grocery bags a week after his 65th birthday. The doctors said it was a massive coronary. I said it was because he worked himself to death trying to give Michael every opportunity we never had. After he died, I kept playing our numbers, kept buying those tickets every Friday. It was the only hour of the week I still felt married, you know? Like Harold was sitting across from me with his reading glasses and his cup of too sweet coffee asking, "Baby, what would you do with $1 million?" So that Friday, sitting in the back corner of my son's house, I pulled up the lottery app and I saw it. Congratulations, you are a jackpot winner, $52 million. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just stared at the screen like it was written in a language I'd forgotten how to read. Then I looked up at Harold's photo, the one I kept in my wallet because Jennifer said pictures of dead people were depressing and couldn't be displayed in her house. "Harold," I whispered. "Baby, you finally did it." Then I heard Jennifer's voice from the living room. "Dot?" Michael's shirts aren't going to iron themselves. I looked at that number. $52 million. Then at Harold's face in that photo, smiling in his Morehouse College t-shirt from Parents' Weekend, so proud of our boy. Then at the pile of Michael's wrinkled dress shirts sitting on the chair next to me, something cold and clear settled into my chest. Not anger, something sharper, something that felt like waking up after decades of sleepwalking. I closed the lottery app. I didn't call the lottery office, didn't scream, didn't tell a soul. Instead, I stood up, picked up the iron, and pressed every single one of those shirts until they were perfect. Because I had just realized something. I needed to know the truth. I needed to know if my son, the boy I'd raised alone after his daddy left, the boy I'd worked double shifts at Grady Hospital to put through college, I needed to know if that boy was still in there somewhere, or if the man living in this house was someone I didn't recognize anymore. So I decided to run a test, a simple one. I would ask my family for help, real help, the kind you ask for when you're desperate and scared and don't know what else to do. I'd ask for something small, something any decent person would help their own mother with, and I'd see who showed up. I hired a lawyer that next Monday, not some billboard guy, a real shark in a glass tower in Buckhead. Set up an LLC, took the lump sum, $28 million after Uncle Sam took his cut. And then I waited. 3 weeks later, I made the call. Michael, baby, I need your help. That's where this story really starts, with a lie that felt more true than anything I'd said in years. But before I tell you what happened, you need to understand how I got to that kitchen, how a woman goes from owning her own home to sleeping in a room the size of a closet, how love turns into invisibility so slowly you don't notice until you've already disappeared. Let me take you back 3 years. To the day I made the biggest mistake of my life. The day I sold my house and moved in with my son. That day, Michael showed up at my house on a Tuesday afternoon. It was a 2-bedroom ranch in East Point that Harold and I had finally paid off after 30 years of mortgage payments. Every square foot bought with overtime shifts and double-time holidays at Grady Hospital. He had Jennifer with him. She was wearing white jeans and carrying a Chanel bag, smiling that smile that never quite reached her eyes. Mom, we need to talk, Michael said, sitting down at my kitchen table without being asked. I was making cornbread. Harold's recipe, the one his mama taught him. I wiped my hands on my apron and sat down across from them. What's wrong, baby? Nothing's wrong, Jennifer said quickly. We're just worried about you. Michael leaned forward, putting on what I called his concerned son face, the one he used when he wanted something but needed me to think it was my idea. Mom, this house is too big for you now. All these stairs, that long driveway you have to shovel in winter. What if you fall? What if something happens and nobody's here? I was 59 years old. I'd worked 12-hour shifts on my feet for decades. But to them, I was already one step from the grave. I'm fine, baby. I have my church ladies. My neighbor Beatrice checks on me every day. Jennifer reached across the table and patted my hand like I was a confused child. Dot, we have that big house in Alpharetta. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. The kids would love having their grandma close by. You could have your own space and we'd all be together, like a real family. Like a real family. As if the 3 years I'd raised Michael alone after his daddy ran off weren't real. As if the life Harold and I built wasn't real, but Michael's next words, those were the ones that got me. Actually, Mom, he scratched the back of his neck, that nervous gesture from when he was a boy caught in a lie. Jennifer and I have been talking about expanding my consulting business. We found this perfect opportunity, but we're a little short on startup capital. There it was. The real reason for the visit. How short? I asked. Well, if you sold this place, you could invest with us. Like a family partnership. We'd give you a return on your investment and you'd have a place to live rent-free. It's perfect. Jennifer jumped in, her voice sugary sweet. And think about it, Dot. No more property taxes, no more maintenance, no more worrying about pipes bursting or the roof leaking. We'd take care of everything. I looked around my kitchen, the table where Harold and I had eaten breakfast for 30 years, the window over the sink where I'd watched Michael learn to ride his bike in the backyard, the marks on the doorframe where we'd measured his height every birthday. How much is the house worth? I asked quietly. Michael pulled out his phone, tapped a few times. I had it appraised last month. You could get about $180,000 for it. No pressure. But there was pressure. I could feel it in the way they both leaned toward me, in the way Jennifer's smile had gone tight at the corners, in the way Michael couldn't quite meet my eyes. I need to think about it, I said. Michael stood up suddenly in a hurry. We should get going. Traffic's gonna be bad. Just think about it, okay, Mom? They were gone in 5 minutes. I sat at that table until the cornbread burned, trying to figure out when my son had learned to lie so smoothly to my face. 2 weeks later, I signed the papers, sold my house for $180,000 and gave every penny to Michael for his business expansion. Don't worry, Mom, he said, hugging me at the closing. This is an investment in our future. Our family's future. I moved into their house the next week with 2 suitcases and a box of photos. The room they gave me was at the back of the house, next to the laundry room, 10 by 10 feet. One small window that looked out at a brick wall. No closet. Just a tension rod in the corner for my clothes. It's temporary, Jennifer said, not meeting my eyes. Just until we finish the basement. Then you'll have a whole suite down there. The basement never got finished, and somehow, temporary turned into 3 years. The first Sunday I lived there, Jennifer asked me to make my famous mac and cheese for her family coming over. Of course, sweetheart, I said. I'd love to. I spent all morning in the kitchen, cooking for 8 people, set the table with the fancy plates Jennifer insisted on, made sweet tea the way my mama taught me, with fresh mint from the garden. When it was time to eat, I started to sit down at the table. Jennifer's mother, a thin white woman with helmet hair and a pinched mouth, looked at me like I'd suggested we all eat on the floor. Oh, Dot, you must be exhausted from all that cooking. Why don't you take a plate to your room and rest? We know you probably want some quiet time. I looked at Michael. He was already sitting down, unfolding his napkin, not meeting my eyes. Yeah, Mom, he said, you worked hard. Go relax. So I took my plate, walked down the hallway past the dining room where I could hear Jennifer's family laughing, ate alone in that little room with no closet, sitting on the edge of the bed because there was no chair. That's when I should have known. That's when I should have packed my bags and found my own apartment, even if it was a studio, even if it was in a rough neighborhood. But I didn't, because I was scared. Scared of being alone, scared of admitting I'd made a mistake, scared that if I left, I'd lose Michael completely. So I stayed, and staying turned me invisible. The pattern started slowly, little requests. Mom, since you're not working, could you watch the kids while I run errands? Mom, could you fold this laundry? My hands are sensitive to detergent. Mom, we're having people over. Would you mind just staying in your room? Every could you and would you mind was another piece of me disappearing. Within 6 months, I was the help, except I wasn't even getting paid. I cooked every meal, cleaned every bathroom, did every load of laundry, watched Aiden and Sophie every weekend while Michael and Jennifer went to brunch, to the movies, to Turks and Caicos for their anniversary. You're so good with them, Mom, Michael would say, kissing my cheek on his way out the door. We really appreciate it. But appreciation doesn't pay for new shoes when yours wear out. Appreciation doesn't cover the copay for your blood pressure medication. I asked Michael about my investment once, just once. It was about 8 months after I moved in. I was in the kitchen making dinner. Baked chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes, the meal I'd made every Thursday for 30 years. And he came in to grab a beer from the fridge. Hey, baby, I said, trying to keep my voice light. I was wondering, have you heard anything about the business? Any returns on that investment yet? He didn't even look up from his phone. Mom, these things take time. You can't expect immediate returns. That's not how business works. Besides, we're putting every penny back into growth. That's how you build something real. You wouldn't understand the financials. You wouldn't understand. Like I hadn't balanced a checkbook for 40 years. Like I hadn't raised a child on a nurse's salary. Like I was too stupid to understand my own money. I never asked again. A year passed, then 2, then 3. I watched Michael buy a new BMW, watched Jennifer get Botox and buy designer handbags and take the kids to Disney World twice. Meanwhile, I wore the same 5 outfits in rotation, bought my medication at the Walmart pharmacy with what was left of my Social Security after I gave Michael rent money. Yes, somehow I was paying rent in the house I'd bought. The worst part wasn't the money, it was the way I'd become furniture. A piece of the house you walk past without noticing. My 60th birthday, they forgot. Completely forgot. I woke up that morning and made breakfast like always. Michael and Jennifer rushed through the kitchen on their way to work. The kids barely looked up from their iPads. Have a good day, I called after them. Nobody answered. I spent that day alone in the house, cleaning rooms I'd already cleaned, cooking a dinner nobody would thank me for. At 7 o'clock, I made myself a box cake mix, yellow cake, chocolate frosting, put a single candle in it because I couldn't find more. I sat at the kitchen table, lit the candle, and sang, "Happy birthday" to myself. Then I ate one piece, wrapped up the rest, and went to bed. Michael called me 3 days later. "Listen, Jennifer's parents are coming for dinner Sunday. Can you make that pot roast they love?" "Of course." He hung up. He never mentioned my birthday. Not that day. Not that week. Not ever. My 61st birthday, I didn't even bother with the cake. Then came the meeting about Sunset Grove. It was a Sunday afternoon, about 6 months before I won the lottery. Michael asked me to sit down in the living room. He had printouts spread across the coffee table, glossy brochures with photos of smiling old people doing Tai Chi and playing bingo. "Sunset Grove Senior Living Community," the biggest one read. My stomach dropped. "Mom, Jennifer and I have been talking," Michael started, using that gentle voice people use when they're about to say something terrible. "We think you might be happier somewhere with people your own age, activities, a community," Jennifer chimed in. "These places are amazing now, Dot. Nothing like those old nursing homes. They have movie nights, book clubs, exercise classes. You'd make so many friends." I looked at the brochures, at the smiling old people who all looked like they'd been photoshopped into their happiness. "You want me to move into a nursing home?" "It's not a nursing home," Michael said quickly. "It's independent living. You'd have your own apartment, your own space." "I have my own space here," I replied. Jennifer actually laughed. "Dot, that room is barely big enough for a bed. At Sunset Grove, you could have a one-bedroom with a kitchenette. Think how nice that would be." "And honestly, Mom," Michael said, scratching that spot on his neck again, "we need the space. The kids are getting older. We're thinking about turning that room into a playroom, or maybe Jennifer's home office." There it was, the truth underneath all the gentle words and glossy brochures. They wanted me gone. "We could help you with the deposit," Jennifer added, "and you'd use your Social Security for the monthly rent. It's actually very affordable. Affordable on a nurse's pension. While they lived in the house, I'd bought them." "I'll think about it," I said. Michael's face tightened. "Mom, we need an answer soon. We've already put down a deposit to hold a unit." "You already paid a deposit?" "Just to hold it," Jennifer said quickly. "It's refundable, but the good units go fast." I looked at my son, tried to find the little boy who used to crawl into my lap when he was scared, the teenager who'd cried in my arms when his high school girlfriend broke his heart, the young man who'd given a speech at his college graduation thanking me for every sacrifice I'd made. But that person wasn't in the room. I don't know when he'd left, but he was gone. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll think about it." 2 weeks later, I won the lottery, and everything changed. After I saw those numbers on my phone, $52 million, I sat in that tiny room for 3 hours, just thinking. I thought about Harold, about how he'd worked himself to death to give Michael a better life, about our Friday nights dreaming about what we'd do with lottery money we never expected to win. "Build you a workshop, baby," I'd always say, "with every tool you ever wanted. And I'd take you to Paris," he'd say, "like you always dreamed." Harold never got his workshop. I never got Paris. But now I had something else. A choice. I could tell Michael about the money, watch him suddenly remember he had a mother, watch Jennifer become sweet as pie. Maybe they'd even mean it, at least for a while. Or I could do something else, something that would tell me the truth about who my son really was. Monday morning, I took the bus downtown to a law office I'd found online. The kind with marble floors and receptionists who looked at my worn coat like I'd walked in off the street. "I need to see a lawyer," I told the receptionist, "about a lottery win." Her eyebrows went up. Suddenly, my worn coat didn't matter so much. 30 minutes later, I was sitting across from Marcus Williams, a man in his 50s with kind eyes and a suit that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check. "Mrs. Richardson," he said, shaking my hand, "I understand you've had some good fortune." I won $52 million, I said, and I need help making sure nobody finds out. He didn't even blink, just pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. Smart thinking. Let me guess. Family situation? My son, I said simply. He nodded like he'd heard this story 1,000 times. Maybe he had. Over the next 2 hours, Marcus explained everything. How to set up an LLC, how to claim the prize anonymously, how to structure the money so it was protected, how much I'd get after taxes. It'll be around $28 million as a lump sum, he said. After federal and state taxes. $28 million. More money than I'd made in my entire lifetime. More money than Harold had made in his. More money than I knew what to do with. Mrs. Richardson, Marcus said gently, can I give you some advice? Please. Don't tell anyone. Not yet, maybe not ever. Money changes people, shows you who they really are. That's what I'm counting on, I said. He looked at me for a long moment, then smiled. You're testing them. My son asked for $180,000 3 years ago, said it was an investment in our future. I never saw a penny back. Now, he wants to put me in a home. Marcus's jaw tightened. And you want to see if he'll help you if he thinks you have nothing? We spent another hour setting everything up. By the time I left his office, Dorothy Richardson, the struggling widow, was officially a multimillionaire, and nobody in my son's house had a clue. I waited 3 weeks, let them get comfortable, let Jennifer add toilet cleaning to my list of duties, let Michael ignore another Sunday dinner with me, too busy watching football with his friends. Then I made my move. I waited until Michael was home on a Tuesday afternoon, working from his home office. Jennifer was at her Pilates class. The kids were at school. I knocked on his door. Yeah, he called, not looking up from his laptop. Michael, baby, I need to talk to you, I said softly. Mom, I'm on a deadline. Can it wait? It's important. He sighed. What is it? I sat down across from his desk, wringing my hands the way I'd practiced, making myself small, making myself scared. I got a letter from the county about the old house, the one I sold. Apparently, there's a property tax issue, a lien from before the sale went through. They're saying I owe $4,200, and if I don't pay by Friday, they're going to... I let my voice crack. They're going to take legal action. It could affect my credit, my Social Security, everything. Michael's face went through several expressions: confusion, irritation, and then something that made my chest hurt: calculation. Mom, how do you not have $4,200? I've been using my Social Security for rent and medication. I didn't know this was coming. He leaned back in his chair, studying me like I was a problem to solve rather than a person who needed help. Mom, this is exactly what I've been talking about. You can't manage your finances. This is why we need to look at Sunset Grove seriously. They have people who handle this stuff for you. But Michael, I need help now. I need $4,200 by Friday, or... Mom, he held up his hand. Stop. Just stop. You need to stop coming to me with your little emergencies. I'm not your ATM, and frankly, I'm tired of bailing out someone who can't even manage basic adult responsibilities. I'm not asking you to bail me out. I'm asking for help with one bill. You know what, Mom? Some of us have real problems. I have a mortgage. I have kids in private school. I have a business to run. I can't just pull $4,200 out of thin air because you didn't plan properly. I sat there, staring at the son I'd raised. What about my investment? I asked quietly. The money from selling my house? You said it was an investment. There must be some returns by now? His face went red. Mom, I've explained this. That money is tied up in the business. You can't just liquidate assets overnight. That's not how it works. But surely after 3 years... Mom! He slammed his hand on the desk. Enough! I don't have time for this. Figure it out yourself. Talk to the county, set up a payment plan, sell something, stop making your problems my problems. I stood up slowly. Okay, baby. I'm sorry I bothered you. And Mom? He was already turning back to his laptop. Jennifer's right. It's time you seriously considered Sunset Grove. We'll help you move when you're ready, but we can't keep supporting you financially and emotionally. It's too much. I walked out of his office and closed the door quietly behind me. In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of water with shaking hands, but I wasn't done testing yet. That evening, I called my cousin Patricia in Savannah. We'd been close growing up, but had drifted apart over the years. Still, family was family. Patricia, it's Dorothy. Dot, Lord girl, it's been too long. How are you? We chatted for a few minutes, catching up. Then I eased into it. Listen, Pat, I'm in a bit of a situation. I've got this property tax issue, about $4,200. I wouldn't ask, but Michael's got his own money tied up in his business, and I'm just on Social Security. There was a pause. A long one. Dot, honey, you know I love you, but Earl and I just spent every spare penny we had on fixing the roof. We're tapped out. I understand. I just thought, have you tried a payment plan with the county? Or maybe a small loan from your bank? Yeah, I'll look into that. Thanks, Pat. I'm sorry, Dot. I really am, but you know how it is. Money's tight for everybody. We hung up. I crossed Patricia's name off my mental list. Next, I called Michael's godmother, Ruth. She'd been at every one of his birthday parties growing up, had sent him money for college graduation, had held him when he cried at Harold's funeral. Ruth, I hate to ask, but I'm in a tight spot. I gave her the same story. Oh, honey, I wish I could help. But I'm on a fixed income too, you know. Have you talked to Michael? He's got a lot going on. Well, that boy needs to step up. You're his mama. Let me call him and tell him. No, it's okay. I'll figure something out. You sure? Because that boy owes you everything. I'm sure. Thanks, Ruth. I hung up. She'd offered to yell at Michael for me, but not to help herself. One more call. My old friend Shirley from the hospital. We'd worked together for 15 years, had raised our kids together, had cried together when Harold died. Shirley, I need a favor. Same story. Same pause. Dot, if I had it, you know I'd give it to you in a heartbeat. But Jerome's been out of work for 2 months. We're behind on our own bills. I understand. I shouldn't have asked. No, it's all good. That's what friends do. I wish things were different. We talked a little longer, and I could hear the genuine regret in her voice. But regret doesn't pay bills. 3 calls, 3 numbers. 2 of them polite excuses. 1 offering to fix the situation by yelling at someone else. I sat there in my tiny room, phone in my hand, and laughed. A quiet, bitter laugh. 30 years of helping people. 30 years of being the one everyone called when they needed something. And now, when I needed help, even fake help, I was alone. Except, I wasn't. Because there was one more call to make. I scrolled through my contacts to a name I hadn't called in 2 years. Beatrice Walker. Beatrice had been my neighbor when I owned my house in East Point. She'd lost her husband, James, the same year I lost Harold. We'd grieved together, gotten through those first terrible holidays together, learned how to be widows together. When I moved in with Michael, Beatrice had asked me, "You sure about this, Dot? You got your own place, your own life." I'd told her it was what Michael needed. She'd just hugged me and said, "Well, you know where I am if you need me." I hadn't called her in 2 years, hadn't wanted her to know how bad things had gotten. But now, sitting in that tiny room with $28 million in the bank and a heart full of hurt, I called her. "Dot? Girl, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you. I know, I'm sorry, it's been hard. You okay? You sound off." And just like that, I started crying. Real, ugly crying. The kind that's been building up for 3 years. "B, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have called, I'm fine." "Dorothy Richardson, don't you dare lie to me. What's wrong?" So I told her. Not about the lottery, I couldn't, but about the property tax bill, about asking Michael for help, about him telling me to be an adult, about Patricia and Ruth and Shirley. I didn't ask her for money, I just needed someone to talk to. "How much is it?" she asked when I finished. "B, I'm not—" "How much, Dot?" $4,200. I heard a chair scrape, a drawer open, then Beatrice's voice, firm and clear. I'm coming over. What? No, Bae, you don't have to. What's the address? I gave it to her. An hour later, my phone buzzed. A text from Beatrice. I'm outside. I slipped out the back door. Nobody noticed me leave. Nobody ever did. Beatrice was parked in front of the house in her old Camry, engine running. I got in the passenger seat. She looked at me for a long moment, taking in my worn clothes, my too-thin face, the way I'd shrunk into myself. Jesus, Dot, what has that boy done to you? I shook my head, unable to speak. Beatrice reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. A worn white envelope with property taxes written on it in her shaky handwriting. Here, open it. Inside was cash, 20s and 50s, folded and creased from being handled. I counted quickly. $1,800. B, this is your property tax money. Yep. I can't take this. You'll lose your house. Dot, you listen to me. She grabbed my hand, squeezed it hard. Harold would have done this for James. James would have done it for Harold. That's what family does. Real family. Not the kind that shares blood. The kind that shows up. But your house? I'll figure it out. I'll call the county, set up a payment plan. They work with you if you explain. But you? She pointed at me. You're in trouble right now. And I'm not going to sit back and watch. Now, you're going to tell me what's really going on in that house? So I did. By the time I finished, Beatrice's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping. That boy needs his ass beat, she said. And I'm volunteering. Despite everything, I laughed. Come stay with me, Beatrice said. I got a couch. It ain't much, but it's yours. You don't have to stay in that house. I can't be. Why not? Because I wasn't done yet. Because I needed to see this through. Because I needed Michael to understand exactly what he'd done. I need a little more time, but B. I squeezed her hand. Thank you for showing me what family looks like. We sat there for a while, two widows in an old Camry, holding hands while the sun set. When I got back to the house, Jennifer was in the kitchen. Where were you? She asked, not looking up from her phone. Out. She looked at me then, eyes narrowed. Well, since you're back, the kids need dinner. Michael and I have a client dinner downtown. What should I make them? I don't know, Dot. Figure it out. That's what parents do. She grabbed her bag and left. I made the kids chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, fed them, bathed them, put them to bed, all without their parents saying goodnight. Then I went to my room, closed the door, and called Marcus Williams. Mrs. Richardson. How did the test go? Exactly how I expected. I'm sorry. So what's next? I looked around that tiny room, at the single bed, the window facing a brick wall, the pile of Michael's shirts I still needed to iron. Now, I said. Now we make some changes, the kind that involves a black Mercedes and a very public exit. I could hear the smile in his voice. I'll make the arrangements. We talked for another hour, planning. When I hung up, I felt lighter than I had in 3 years. The test was over. I had my answer. Michael had failed. Patricia, Ruth, Shirley, they'd all failed in their own ways. But Beatrice? Beatrice had passed with flying colors, and now it was time to collect my prize and walk away from people who'd treated my love like it was worthless. 3 days later, I made my move. It was a Thursday afternoon. Jennifer was at her yoga class. Michael was in his home office on a conference call. I'd packed my things the night before, same 2 suitcases I'd arrived with 3 years ago, plus the box of photos. I'd hidden them in the back of the closet so nobody would ask questions. At exactly 3 p.m., I called Michael's office line. Baby, I just wanted to tell you I'm leaving. Leaving? Where are you going? I'm moving out. Today. There was a pause. What? Mom, we need to talk about this. No need. I found a place. Someone's coming to pick me up in about 10 minutes. Mom, you can't just... Who's picking you up? Where are you going? Goodbye, Michael. I hung up. I heard him come out of his office, heard his footsteps in the hallway, but I was already carrying my suitcases to the front door. Mom! Mom, wait, let's talk about this. Nothing to talk about. The doorbell rang. Michael opened it, and I watched his face go through a series of expressions I'll remember for the rest of my life. Confusion, recognition, shock, and finally, pure panic. Because standing in the doorway was Henry Montgomery. Henry had been Harold's business partner 40 years ago before they sold their construction company. He was 73 now, silver-haired and distinguished, wearing a suit that cost more than Michael's BMW payment. And behind him, parked in the driveway, was a black Mercedes S-Class with a driver waiting. Dorothy, Henry said warmly, ignoring Michael completely. Are you ready? I am. I picked up my suitcases. Wait, Michael said, his voice cracking. Mr. Montgomery? What? Why are you here? Henry looked at him then, and his expression was colder than January. I'm here for Mrs. Richardson. She'll be staying with me for the foreseeable future. Staying with you? Mom, what is going on? I turned to face my son. What's going on is I asked you for help with $4,200, and you told me to be an adult. Adults don't stay where they're not wanted. Jennifer's car pulled into the driveway behind the Mercedes. She got out, took one look at the scene, and hurried over. What's happening? Dot, where are you going? Away from here. But you can't just leave. We have an arrangement. An arrangement where I'm your maid? That arrangement? Her face went red. We gave you a place to live. I gave you a place to live with the $180,000 from my house, the house I worked 30 years to pay off. Michael's face went white. Mom, don't. I held up my hand. I'm done, Michael. I'm done being invisible, done being treated like hired help, done waiting for you to remember you have a mother. I walked past him, past Jennifer standing there with her mouth open, past the life I'd been living like a ghost. Henry took one of my suitcases. The driver took the other. Henry opened the car door for me, and I slid into the back seat of that Mercedes. Through the window, I saw Michael standing in the driveway watching me leave. For a moment, just a moment, I saw the little boy he used to be, the one who'd crawled into my bed during thunderstorms, the one who'd held my hand at Harold's funeral. But that little boy was gone, and I couldn't keep grieving someone who didn't exist anymore. As we pulled away, I didn't look back. Are you okay? Henry asked gently. I took a deep breath. I will be. We drove in silence for a while. Then Henry said, Harold would be proud of you, you know. Walking away like that, it took courage. Harold would have beat Michael's ass. Henry laughed. True, he would have. How did you know? I asked. How did you know to show up today? Your lawyer called me, said you needed a place to stay and a dramatic exit. I was happy to provide both. I smiled despite myself. Thank you, Henry. Dorothy, Harold was my best friend for 40 years. That makes you family. And family shows up. I thought about Beatrice, sitting in her car with her property tax money, about Henry driving across town to rescue a widow he hadn't seen in years. Family shows up. I pulled out my phone. 7 missed calls from Michael, 3 from Jennifer. I turned off my phone and put it in my purse. Henry's penthouse was everything my little room wasn't. Space, light, a view of the entire city, my own bedroom with a real closet, my own bathroom with a soaking tub, a balcony where I could drink my morning coffee and watch the sunrise. That first night, I stood on that balcony and cried. Relief tears, grief tears, anger tears, all of it coming out at once. When I finally stopped, I felt empty, but not a bad empty. Like a house after you've cleaned out all the junk, ready for something new. I slept for 12 hours straight. Best sleep I'd had in 3 years. The next morning, Henry made breakfast. Scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, fresh fruit. We ate on the balcony. So, he said, pouring me more coffee. What now? Now? I looked out at the city. Now I tell you a secret. 6 months ago, I won $52 million in the lottery. Henry's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down carefully. Say that again? I won the Powerball, $52 million. After taxes, $28 million. Nobody knows except my lawyer. I didn't tell Michael because I needed to know the truth. Needed to know if he'd help me when he thought I had nothing. I looked at Henry. Now I know. Henry sat back in his chair, studying me. Then he started laughing, deep, genuine laughter that made his eyes water. You magnificent woman, you tested them. And they all failed. Except one, Beatrice. She tried to give me her property tax money. Beatrice Walker? From East Point? You know her. Harold and I did some work on her house back in the day. Good woman, salt of the earth. Henry leaned forward. Dorothy, what are you going to do with the money? I'd been thinking about that for weeks, lying in that tiny room, plotting and planning while Jennifer ordered me around like hired help. I'm going to buy Beatrice's house for her. Pay it off completely. Set up a fund so she never has to worry about property taxes again. Then I'm going to start a foundation for widows who get taken advantage of by their families. Legal help, financial planning, housing assistance, everything I wish I'd had. Then I'm going to live. Not just exist in someone's back room waiting to die. I'm going to travel. Maybe I'll finally see Paris. Harold would love that. Yeah. My throat got tight. Yeah, he would. We sat in silence for a while, watching the city wake up. What about Michael? Henry asked finally. Are you going to tell him? About the money? I thought about it, about the phone calls I was ignoring, about the texts piling up, about the son who'd forgotten he had a mother until she disappeared. Eventually, I said, but not yet. Right now, he needs to sit with what he's done, needs to understand what it feels like to lose someone because you took them for granted. And if he never figures it out, then I guess he'll have to live with that. My phone rang again, Michael's name on the screen. I declined the call. 3 weeks passed. I stayed with Henry, getting used to having space again, having a voice again, being visible. Marcus Williams helped me set up everything, the foundation, Beatrice's house payoff, investments that would let me live comfortably for the rest of my life and still have enough to help others. I called Beatrice and asked her to meet me for coffee. We met at a little cafe in East Point, near where we used to be neighbors. Dot, you look different, she said, hugging me. You look alive. I feel alive. Where you been staying? You never told me. With a friend of Harold's, Henry Montgomery. Her eyebrows went up. The Henry Montgomery, the one who owned half of Atlanta? That's him. Dot, what's really going on? I pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check for $150,000. What is this? She stared at it like it might bite her. It's your house. Paid off. Free and clear. You tried to give me your property tax money. $1,800 you needed to keep your own roof over your head. You didn't hesitate. Didn't make excuses. You just showed up. But this is crazy money, Dot. Where did you get... Remember when I told you about that property tax problem? Yeah. It didn't exist. I made it up. Because 6 months ago, I won $52 million in the lottery. Beatrice's mouth fell open. I didn't tell anyone. I needed to know who'd help me when they thought I had nothing. You passed, Bea. You were the only one who passed. She started crying. Oh my God, Dot. So take the money. Let me do this for you. Let me show you what you showed me. That real family shows up. We both cried in that cafe while confused baristas pretended not to stare. I don't know what to say, Beatrice finally whispered. Dot, this is too much. I handed her another envelope. This is a trust fund set up in your name. It'll cover your property taxes, insurance, and maintenance for the rest of your life. She just shook her head, tears streaming. Why? Why me? Because when I needed someone, you showed up. That's worth more than any amount of money. We held hands across the table. 2 widows who'd found what family really meant. That night, I finally listened to Michael's voicemails. 23 of them. The first few were angry. "Mom, you can't just leave like this. We need to talk." Then, confused, "Mom, please call me back. I don't understand what's happening." Then, worried, "Mom, are you okay? Where are you staying? Is it safe?" And finally, the most recent one, left the night before. "Mom, I've been thinking about what you said, about the $180,000, about treating you like hired help, about telling you to be an adult. I was wrong. I know that now. I miss you. The kids miss you, even Jennifer. Okay, maybe not Jennifer, but I miss you, Mom. Please call me." His voice cracked at the end. I saved the message, but didn't call back. 4 weeks after I left, Marcus called me. "Dorothy, we have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "Michael filed a missing persons report. Says you disappeared. He's got the police involved." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "Of course he did." "What do you want to do?" "I'll call the detective. Let them know I'm fine, but I'm not talking to Michael yet." "You sure?" "Marcus, my son spent 3 years treating me like I was invisible. Let him spend a few more weeks wondering where I am." "You're a tough woman, Dorothy Richardson." "I'm a woman who's done being soft." I called the detective, confirmed I was alive and well and had left of my own free will. The case was closed within an hour. That evening, Henry and I had dinner on the balcony. "Have you thought about what you're going to tell him?" Henry asked. "Eventually, you'll have to face Michael." "I know. What will you say?" I looked out at the city lights. "I'll tell him that love isn't a transaction. That being a parent doesn't mean working yourself to death so your kids can use you up and throw you away. That family means showing up even when it's inconvenient, even when there's nothing in it for you." Think he'll understand? Honestly, I don't know, but that's his problem now, not mine. "Harold would be proud of you." Maybe. Or maybe he'd say, "I should have left sooner." Henry smiled. He'd say both. 2 months after I left Michael's house, I finally agreed to meet him on neutral ground, a coffee shop downtown. He was already there when I arrived, looking thinner, older. He stood up when he saw me. "Mom." We sat down. Neither of us knew how to start. Finally, he said, "You look good. Better than before." "I feel better." "Mom, about that day, about what I said." "Michael, let me talk first." He nodded, looking miserable. "For 3 years, I lived in your house like a ghost. I cooked, cleaned, watched your kids, gave up my entire life, and you know what? I would have done it happily if you just treated me like a person, like your mother." "Mom, I'm not finished. You told me to be an adult, to handle my own problems. But Michael, I gave you $180,000. I worked 3 jobs to put you through college. I raised you alone when your daddy left. I was the adult. For your entire life, I was the adult." His eyes filled with tears. "And when I asked you for help, fake help, Michael, because I didn't actually need the money, you told me I was a burden. You said some of us have real problems." "I know. God, Mom, I know. I was awful." "You were? And you know what the worst part was? It didn't surprise me, because for 3 years, you'd been showing me exactly who you were. I just kept making excuses for you." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." We sat in silence. "Mom," he said finally, "can you forgive me?" I looked at my son, saw the guilt, the shame, the regret. "Eventually," I said, "but not today. Today, I'm still too angry." "What can I do?" he asked. "Show me. Don't tell me you're sorry. Show me. Be the man I raised you to be. Be the man Harold would have wanted you to be. Start by being a better father to your kids. Be present. Be grateful. Don't take people for granted just because they love you." He nodded, wiping his eyes. I stood up. "I should go." "Mom, wait. Can I hug you?" I hesitated, then, "Okay." He hugged me like he was drowning and I was the life raft. I let him hold on, feeling his tears on my shoulder. When he pulled back, I said, I do love you, baby. I always will. But love isn't enough if there's no respect. I walked out of that coffee shop lighter than I'd felt in years. 6 months after I left Michael's house, I threw myself a party. Not a birthday party. I'm alive and done playing small party. I rented out a small venue in downtown Atlanta, invited Beatrice and her friends, Henry and his children, a few of my old co-workers from the hospital, the staff from Marcus's law firm who'd helped set up my foundation, and I invited Michael. He came alone. Jennifer apparently had filed for divorce 3 months after I left. Something about irreconcilable differences and unmet expectations. I wasn't surprised. Michael approached me nervously. Thanks for inviting me. You're welcome. This place is nice. How did you afford? I smiled. Michael, there's something I need to tell you. I led him to a quiet corner and handed him a glass of champagne. 6 months ago, right before I asked you for that $4,200, I won the lottery, $52 million. The champagne glass slipped from his hand. He caught it just before it fell. You... What? I won the Powerball. After taxes, I got $28 million. His face went through shock, confusion, and then dawning horror. The property tax bill didn't exist. I was testing you, testing all of you, seeing who'd show up when they thought I had nothing. And I failed. Spectacularly. He sat down hard on a nearby chair. Mom, God, I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything. You must hate me. I don't hate you, Michael. I'm disappointed, but I don't hate you. What now? Now I live my life. I've set up a foundation to help widows. I bought Beatrice's house for her. I'm planning a trip to Paris in the spring. I'm doing everything I dreamed about on those Friday nights with Harold. And me? Where do I fit? I looked at my son. That's up to you. You can be part of my life, but on different terms. I'm not your maid. I'm not your ATM. I'm your mother, and I deserve respect. You do. I know that now. Do you? Because it's easy to say when you know I have money. The question is, would you have figured it out if I didn't? He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Think about that, I said. And when you have an answer, call me. I walked back to the party, leaving him sitting there. Henry found me a few minutes later. How'd he take it? About as well as expected, I replied. Beatrice joined us, looking beautiful in a new dress I'd insisted on buying her. This party is something else, Dot. It's a celebration of surviving, of finding out who you really are, of building a life that's yours. To new beginnings, Henry said, raising his glass. To chosen family, Beatrice added. To Friday nights, I said, and finally winning the lottery. We clinked glasses and drank. Across the room, Michael sat alone, staring at nothing. Eventually, he stood up and left without saying goodbye. I watched him go and felt nothing, no guilt, no sadness, just acceptance. Maybe one day he'd figure it out, maybe he wouldn't. But either way, I'd be okay. Because I'd finally learned the most important lesson. You can't make someone love you the way you deserve to be loved. But you can stop settling for crumbs when you're worth the whole damn cake. 6 months later, I was sitting at a cafe in Paris, drinking real French coffee and eating a croissant that was so good it made me want to cry. Harold's photo was in my purse. I'd brought it with me. We made it, baby, I whispered. Took us 40 years and 1 Powerball ticket, but we made it. I raised my coffee cup to the sky, to Harold, to whatever force in the universe had decided a 62-year-old widow deserved one more chance at happiness. Thank you, I whispered. Did I do the right thing? Where are you listening from? I would love to hear from you. Can you also do me a favor and subscribe to this channel? This way we can meet again in another story.